Hello YouTube, this is Morgan Airspeed Prime here at my next YouTube video. This video is going to be a Transformers comic review, and I'm going to be reviewing this, and that is Transformers More Than Meets the Eye Volume 2, obviously from IDW Comics. But before I get into that, just briefly, this week pretty much has been really busy for me, so that's why I didn't put out a video midweek, but hopefully I'll have more videos out coming up. So, yeah, I'll just get straight into this. Obviously, this is the second trade paperback for the More Than Meets the Eye series. My first Transformers comic review was obviously the first volume of this, which contained the death of Optimus Prime and issues 1 to 3. What this issue contains, this trade contains, is issues 4 to 8. So it's got issue 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. That's what's in this book, as well as a cover gallery at the back. It's just, really there's not much extras in this because it's a 5-issue trade, but it basically just has the exclusive covers at the back. But other than that, so it doesn't have much extras, but it's a nice collection of 5 of the issues of the comic. In terms of the creative team on this book, you have James Roberts, obviously on writing, and Alex Milne on art for every issue except issue 6, where issue 6, Nick Roche, who did issue 1, comes back. And the reason he just comes back for that issue is because that was one that he just needed to do. It involves one of the characters he helped to basically create, and he definitely wanted to do that issue. So he's on issue 6. But I'll get straight into talking about what happens here. The first trade basically covers the introduction stuff. Death of Optimus Prime issue, More Than Meets the Eye issue 1, great introduction stuff, and then issues 2 and 3 basically tell a story, the first issue to happen on board the Lost Light. When you start issue 4 and 5, it tells another story that happens, but focusing on different characters. Well, the first story was kind of a Rodimus, Spark Eater, Rung kind of a focus story, with issue 4 and 5, which is kind of subtitled the Delphi arc, where they go to the planet Delphi, where there's a medical outpost that the Autobots run. It involves Ratchet, who obviously, as the chief medical officer for the Autobots, is basically hears something and wants to go down there. Along with him, Drift goes down, as well as Pipes, who's kind of gets his first kind of main role in the book. So the first 2 issues in this trade really heavily focus on those 3 characters, basically, and their interactions with the people they find on the medical outpost. So you really do get kind of a lot of medical stuff between these guys. Like, there's basically them finding the medical outpost. There's a plague there, and they're not meant to really go in there, but Pipes wrecks the place because, as we find out, this mission down to Delphi is his first time ever being on an alien planet, a planet that's not Cybertron, so he has this whole new explorer vibe, and the rest of them are kind of new to it, old hands at it, basically. And then, like, the characterization, obviously, is the 2 more experienced guys know what they're doing, but Drift and Ratchet are at odds with each other because of their views on, basically, Transformers religion. Drift obviously believes in the Knights of Cybertron and believes in this whole quest that they're going on, while Ratchet, a more scientifically focused medical guy, doesn't. He's on the quest because he wants to find a new chief medical officer, which is what these 2 stories involve. They go to a medical outpost, and he's basically down there to make a guy called Pharma the new chief medical officer. But because of stuff that happens, the cause of the plague gets crazy, some of the crew that goes down gets infected. It's pretty, like, disturbing what happens. Pipes gets really badly infected. I'm not going to spoil if he dies or not, but stuff happens to Pipes. Stuff happens to Drift and Ratchet, so they all get pretty badly damaged. I'm not going to spoil anything, but there's a huge mystery around what caused this plague. It involves Decepticons, it involves the DJD, which is going to play into some of the other issues in this trade, and it's just an excellent story. And along with this happening, you have story like with Tailgate, this guy who's been out of action for millions of years, and he basically comes back and knows just one bot, and that's Cyclonus, who himself wasn't even involved in the war. So he's finding out everything about the Autobots and Decepticons from a guy who wasn't involved, and decides that he wants to be a Decepticon. And then it's all about this crew, which is all Autobots apart from Cyclonus and Tailgate, showing him that the Autobots are the right one, which is kind of explains where this cover comes from. Ultra Magnus, obviously the Autobot, and teaching him the difference between that, and you get some really nice kind of funny moments on the ship as opposed to dramatic moments on the ship, and dramatic moments taking place on Delphi. But from there, the trade goes into this issue, which is obviously issue 6, and this is a kind of more of a standalone issue, and by a lot of fans of More Than Mystery and Transformers comics, this is arguably considered the best of the first 12 issues, issue 6, because of the tie-in to probably one of the more famous, most popular Transformers comics, Last Stand of the Wreckers. The tie-in to that with obviously Fortress Maximus, who ran Garrus 9, which was involved in that story. Now, the cool thing about this is that it basically recaps you on what you need to know about Last Stand of the Wreckers. It's not that you have required reading of Last Stand of the Wreckers, though it really helps, and you get a lot of extras in this. And obviously, this is a Nick Roche drawn issue, which adds to this as well. Because a character like Fortress Maximus, Overlord, who he helped to create kind of in the IDW universe, it's so good that he's drawing them, basically. And this story revolves around the aftermath of 4 and 5, and Fortress Maximus was found on Delphi, injured from the events of Last Stand of the Wreckers. He's basically back up and running, and still dealing with the mental side of the beating he took at Overlord's hands. And that's what this is so good about this issue. The focus is on Fortress Maximus and Rung, who's the ship's psychologist, so he goes there, and it's basically this reflection on his time at Garrus 9 being tortured by Overlord. And basically Fortress Maximus then snaps. He is afraid basically of the fact that he was of Overlord, basically. That so badly ruined him that he's taking it out on members of the ship, and he's kind of snapped a bit, which leads to the guys in charge of the ship, Rodimus, Drift, Ultra Magnus, to make some pretty harsh decisions with regards to the hostage situation that's just happened. And it works so well as a standalone story. Like, you get instant payoff in this issue, in that it starts off the story of what Fortress Maximus is thinking, and then kind of ends it towards the end. It's not completely resolved, but it works as a kind of standalone issue, in that it's not a huge arc going forward, but what is going forward is the character development on board the Lost Light. From there, the series actually takes a bit of a different kind of take now, because as you can see from the covers, it's none of the standard characters in the book, because the focus actually switches in these 2 issues from the Lost Light to 2 groups of Decepticons. The first being the DJD, which is the Decepticon Justice Division, who are basically the people in charge of the Decepticons who keep the Decepticons in line. So if any Decepticon betrays the Decepticon cause, they're put on this list, and they basically hunt them down, torture them, kill them, that sort of thing. So they basically have a list of every Decepticon, new and old, that in existence, and ranks them in order. So the one on top of their list, or bottom I think of the list, I can't remember the exact details of the list, but the ones on the top, they go for them, and then in order, kind of like that, they go down the list to least important. And this links in heavily to the other group of characters, these scavengers, who are basically just a ragtag group of Decepticons who happen to survive some battles and have kind of come together. They meet this guy they find on the planet, and basically you get this kind of alternate version of the Lost Light with Decepticons, where there's the same kind of interactions between them in that they're all together on the same side. It's not in a kind of war setting, but you definitely get the fact that the Decepticons, because they do kind of things in a more cruel way than, say, they do in the Autobot ship, the Lost Light. So that really works to show that the war's over, but there's still these groups of Decepticons, and showing that they are Cybertronians. They're not just Decepticons and Autobots. And naturally, it turns out that one of the scavengers, the new guy they meet, happens to be on the Decepticon Justice Division's list, and they're being hunted. And outside of these two issues, they haven't really done much with this story after that, and we're up to issue 15 or 16 right now. So that's definitely going to come back into play. It ties into something happening in the rest of the issues, but I just like the fact that they've actually taken a break from the Lost Light to kind of set up this story in it, in that there are these other stories going on, not just the initial Lost Light story. And you get introduced to a whole other group of characters. I'll show you the Meet the Crew page for this one, if there is one. No, that's not it. I think it's in issue 8. It's called the Meet the Cons page. And you have, obviously, the DJD and the Scavengers. And again, they like the Lost Light, they all have very specific characters. There's a lot of humour in their interactions, but it's more macabre kind of humour because they are Decepticons. And overall, all these issues work together into a really nice trade, in that you get 4 and 5 as this nice medical story focused on a few members of the Lost Light. Then you go to issue 6, and it's this really dramatic kind of hostage crisis issue, and then take a break from that and go into issue 7 and 8, which take you away from that and focus more on the Decepticons, what they're doing in More Than Meets the Eye. And the art continues to be amazing, especially issue 6 with Nick Roche on art, but Alex Milne just gets better and better as it goes along. James Roberts' writing continues to be amazing, and overall, More Than Meets the Eye is just such a great book, basically. There's not much else I really want to say other than I think issue 4 and 5 as a kind of arc, a little mini story, is probably one of my favourites so far in More Than Meets the Eye. I just absolutely love what they do with it. It's just the way all the characters interact and kind of bounce off each other while stuff is going on in the ship just works so well. Get the trade out again. If you wonder who the character on the front of this cover is, that is the leader of the Decepticon Justice Division, Tarn. And definitely a huge threat based on what they do at the start of basically issue 7. And it's one of those things where, because they've only set it up in 7 and 8, and we haven't seen them for 7, 8 issues, it makes them that much more of a threat, and I'm so eager to see what they're going to do going forward with them. So, that's pretty much been my review of Transformers More Than Meets the Eye Volume 2. I definitely recommend picking up More Than Meets the Eye, because in my opinion it's definitely the best Transformers series out there. And next week I will be reviewing Robots in Disguise Volume 2, which is the kind of other series going on Cybertron, basically at the same time as stuff is going on with the Lost Light. So I'll be reviewing this one next week, and then obviously the week after that, More Than Meets the Eye Volume 3, Robots in Disguise Volume 3, and then after that, Volume 4 haven't come out yet, but I'll do them when they do come out. So thank you for watching this review. Definitely comment on your own thoughts on these comics if you've read them, or if you have any questions about the books or anything like that. So thank you for listening, and bye.